All right. I believe it's recording now. Okay, so the key to creating animations and storyboards within Photoshop is using something that's called layer comps. And so let me show you how I go about that. First, I just created a new layer right here, and this is on the very basic level, right? Let's just make this first layer 1, right? And then let's make another layer now. Let's see. Make another layer. We'll call this one 2, right? And then we'll make another layer and call this one 3. Okay. So if I wanted to, I can actually make layer comps that animate these 3 numbers, right? So if you go to Windows and you come down to layer comps, it brings up this brand new menu. So what layer comps are is it's kind of showing, it's telling Photoshop what I want to be visible and where I want those things to be. So it can translate. You all know what translation means? Meaning it moves like up, down, side, side. But it will not save out the scale, and it will not save out the rotation, but it will save out the translation. And that alone makes layer comps kind of worth working on. So say, for example, if I wanted to create a series of layer comps for this, and I wanted to just start off with the number 1 right here, right? Well, then I just go over to my layer comps window and I hit that little plus button. And you can see here, there's all these boxes I can check. And once you check them, it'll remember that that's what you want for the next one and the next one. So this first box says visibility. So whatever layer I have visible, it will stay visible. And whatever layer I have hidden, it'll remember to hide that. Okay. Position. So that's the translation part that I was talking about. If I move this 1 to the right or to the left, it'll actually remember it. Okay. And then appearance, which is layer style. So like, you know how you can change a layer to multiply or overlay or color dodge in those modes, it'll remember those as well. And then this last one is like for smart objects, which I don't use, but anyways. So let's just make a layer comp right now and call this 0, 1, right? And hit OK, because 1 is showing, right? And then I want to switch from 1 to 2, right? So I'm going to put 2 over 1 and then hide 1. And now this is the second frame I want to show, right? So I'm just going to hit this little plus, and I'm just going to call this 0, 2, right? And all these, remember, all these, I don't have to check these again, right? It remembered that I checked them in the first time. Just check everything. Yeah. And I hit OK. And it'll remember it. And so if I want to see what I did previous, 1, okay, so it's important that you understand that clicking on where the word is here doesn't really do anything except it selects that layer. But if you click on the box on the side, it'll actually show you what that layer is doing, right? So you can see I could toggle between 1 and 2 now over here. And, you know, you could guess what the next one's going to be. I'm just going to bring 3 into play here. Right. And then I'm just going to hit plus again. And this one I'm going to call 0, 3. Right. So now when I play it, I can go 1, 2, 3, and it goes back to 1. So if it's on a loop, it'll just keep, you know, it'll cycle through which ones I want visible, right? And so let's say, for example, if I wanted to move panel 3 right here, instead of me having to redraw another layer that has 3 in a different position, I can actually just move it and then put in another layer comp. And I'll just call this, I don't know, 03, I don't know, right or something like that. Okay. So now you could see it goes 1, 2, 3, and then it moves 1 step to the right, you know, like that. So this is really helpful for storyboarding because, you know, sometimes you just want an object to move across the screen and you just want to hide in, you know, I don't know, different things to the object. So here's the problem when encountering some of this stuff is you're like, well, what do I do if I wanted to rotate the number 3 here? What do I do? Anybody have any ideas? Yeah, I just duplicate this layer and make a copy. And on the copied layer, that's the one that I rotate, right? Like that. So then when I make a new layer comp, I just call it 03 rotate, like that. So it's kind of a magic trick there, right? I didn't actually rotate it. I just made a clone of it, and you're seeing the clone do the rotation, right? Like that. And the same goes for scale as well. So if I wanted this thing to scale, I'll just duplicate that rotated one and just shrink this 3 and I don't know, move it over there. And then I'm just going to hit a plus and go 0, 3, shrink, right? Hit OK. So now when I go 3, rotate, and then shrink. So you can actually cycle through quite a bit of animation this way, right? Anybody have any questions so far? That's on like the most basic level as to like what's happening here on, and what can be used, right? Like you can imagine like if you have a character and you wanted to change their facial expressions, then you could just keep, keyframe that stuff in there, right? Okay.
You want to use this, like, if you were making an animatic,
Mm-hmm.
would you prefer this or essentially like Premiere?
I believe I prefer this over Premiere, but I know that nowadays they use another program called Toon Boom,
Oh,
and that one is probably what they mainly use for storyboards. But if you wanted to do storyboards or a quick animation within Photoshop, without buying new software, right? This is one way to do that, But yeah, I mean, it's also like kind of fun. Okay, so say for example, if on 1, I also wanted there to be like a bouncing ball or something like that, right? So I'm just going to make a brand new layer now, and I'm going to make like a oval ball, right? So I'm just going to call this layer oval. And I'm like, but 1, we've already determined what 1 was. How do I include this bouncing ball into 1 again? Well, there you have this little recycle looking button right here. It's called update. And when you click on that, it'll update that layer comp to now include that oval. So when I go to 2 and go back to 1, now you see the ovals in there. You get that? So then, yeah, if I go to 2 and I've got this oval, I can move this oval down, right? And that's my next frame. and I'll update it to now include this oval, right? And then I can move to frame 3, in which case, what? My oval's now going to be squished, right? So I'll make a new layer, and in this new layer, I'm just gonna, I don't know, do that, right? And then update that. And then this 3 rotate thing, well, we could go back to the oval again and go up, and then on the 3 rotate, can raise that oval up higher, right? And then update. And then on the last frame, I think I'm just gonna make a circle. Because once it's kind of reached its peak, it doesn't need to like be stretched anymore. Right. So now, oh wait, did I say I didn't update it? So yeah, and then update. Okay, so now if you take a look, you can add things to your frames, even, or layer comps, even after the fact, right? Anybody have any questions on this? Kind of self-explanatory, right? Okay, so
Is there like an add-on you could just, or like a plugin you could use that would just play it rather than click into it?
oh yeah. So in order to like kind of play it through, you're gonna have to give it some timing. And so this is actually a good question for the next step. So within Photoshop, they have this thing here called the timeline. So if you go to Window, you come down here to Timeline. Okay. So timeline's going to bring up this little horizontal menu right here. By default, the timeline says create video timeline. That's not the one you want. Can everybody see that? Create video timeline? That's not the one you want. What you want is click on the little down arrow, and then you'll see here, create frame animation. That's the one you want. So then if you create frame animation, and now this kind of turns into a button, so you click on it, and it'll just show you whatever frame you have showing, right? So by default, it's on 0 seconds. What I normally do is I set things at about half a second first, so 0.5 seconds. You know, you could click, you could change the timing. Look at this. So you see this little arrow right here? You can change it to like 0.5, 0.2, however many seconds you want, or milliseconds you want. So I usually just make everything 0.5 just off the bat, because it just makes life easier. So I have frame 1 showed, and so this is kind of the process I go through. I'm just going to determine which frames are going to be on my timeline first, then I'll adjust the timing afterwards. So I'll hit plus, and I'll move on to this next frame for 2, right? And then I'll hit plus, and then I'll move on to this next layer comp, right? I just kind of keep doing that down the line until I get back to, you know, the end there, right? And so now, if I play the animation right here, there's a play button, it'll actually show all the stuff that I was doing, you know, but at like half a second, which kind of, you know, it's not fast. So maybe I should have done like 0.2 on all of these. And you can see how easy it is to change up the timing once you've laid in, you know, your frames that you want, right? So now I'm going to speed it up a little bit, you know, and maybe like on the fall, I want things to move faster. I can do that, right? So maybe this first one is 0.1 second. The second one is also 0.1 second. And then this is 0.2. And then this going up is 0.1 second. And that one's also 0.1 second. And then it hangs in the air, right? So now it's varying up the time and it feels smoother now, right? See there?
Can you do that, Lee, for like, if you're painting a background and then you have separate characters,
Yes.
could you actually animate the characters in this and then layer it over the background?
Yeah, yeah, you can definitely do that. Like you can actually make, you know, almost like your own animation.
Yeah.
Especially if you're just gonna do some limited animation, which is what these storyboard slash animatic things are for the effects work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could actually paint a full background, you know, like, you know, I could bring in my previous piece that I showed you, this thing right here, and and slot this in into the background for this image. Right, because we're still in Photoshop, right? So that's the cool part about all this is we're still in Photoshop. Now, why would you ever want you wouldn't, you know? But I'm just giving you an example as to like, you know. Yeah, exactly, right? And so you could see oh, actually what's funny is because I dropped it in just now, it just shows up on every single frame here, even though it's not actually on each of my layer comps here. But if I wanted to, you know, be correct on all this, I would actually go in again on my layer comps, go click on one and then update, right? And then click on number two, go to number two, and then update. Kind of run myself through this process again of updating each one of these frames. But I've got the good part is I've got the timing kind of figured out at this point, right? Like that. So now it's in my layer comp. So yeah. So yeah, if I wanted to now, you could see, you know, your characters could animate in the foreground and then you could have a background image somewhere. Yeah. So especially if you wanted to just, I don't know, you got a spaceship that's landing or, you know, a laser that's about to like blow a hole on the side of this cliff, you can, you know, easily do that, right? So anybody have any questions as to, you know, how to create a layer comp and then how to take the layer comp and put it onto a timeline and then how to adjust the timeline so that it like better times out your animation? No? Okay, so in that case, then what do I do when I'm done with this? I can export this as an animated GIF. So you want to make memes, this is a way to do it. All right. So export, and this is kind of insulting, but they call it Save for Web Legacy. Legacy is the modern day way of saying the old way, you know? But anyways, if you go to Save for Web Legacy, you could see here GIF right here. You can save it out as a GIF. And then you can see that the size of this file is massive right now, right? It's like 2000 something pixels. And so if you wanted to make it run easier and faster, you can see over here, there's this thing here called %. And so I can make that like say 25% the original, you know, size. Okay. So then that'll shrink it down automatically for me and then export it out as an animated GIF, right? So I'm just gonna hit, and also they have a looping option here, which is great. So it just goes on forever. So that way, when people open it up, it's just gonna cycle, right? And you hit save. And then it asks, where do you want to save this? And so I'm just gonna save it on my flash drive under week 8. And I'm gonna call this, I don't know, class demo. And save. And it was that fast, like it did it instantaneously, right? And so let's go over here, go to color and light, week 8. Let's take a look. Should be this one. Wait, should be this one right here. I guess you can open it in Internet Explorer or something. I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah. So there you go. Right. What's really good about animated GIFs is a lot of folks in the video game industry, they pitch their ideas using PowerPoint. And with the animated GIF, you could just drag and drop it right into PowerPoint. And now their presentation has a little animation associated with it instead of just like a still image, right? And so especially if they're trying to describe a bunch of gameplay things, right? Like say, for example, if your character has a double jump or something else, right? Like a glide or something like that, then you can actually show that in an animation. So that's, you know, that's part of the reason why I'm showing y'all how to do this. I was debating quite a bit. It's like, you know, it's more a color and lighting class, but you know, it's really cool to see lights moving around too, you know, within the animation. So any case, yeah. And anybody have any questions as to what's going on? I threw out a lot of brand new tools that are, you know, built into Photoshop that most of you probably have never dealt with before, but you know, oh yeah, and you can also, if you don't want to export it as an animated GIF, you can actually render it out as a MP4 video as well. So render video. I went to file. Let me show you all again. You go to file, you go to export, and then you come down here to render video. Okay. And this is after you've got the timeline all figured out, because now there's a timeline associated with this thing, right? And so here you can select what folder do I want them to drop off that video into, right? So I'm just going to go back to the save spot that I had before here, select that folder, and then what's the name of the file? We'll call it, you know, class demo. And what quality? So this one you can actually render it out big and full size if you wanted to. You can even change like what kind of quality you want, it 1080p or whatever. I'll just render it. You know, it'll take a little bit sometimes, but that was pretty fast actually. And so now you can see here, this MP4 is now a video file that you can actually watch. Oh, it doesn't cycle on the loop though. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, I think you can set it so that it cycles, but anyways, no questions, huh? Pretty nifty little tool in Photoshop. Let me stop recording and then you'll have this little demo.